Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited that you decided to tune in for today's episode because today we're going to be starting a brand new mini series. So I recently, maybe not even recently, a few months ago, started a series, a 4-part mini series, which was all on living in alignment with self, relationships, work, all the good things. And I thought, why not bring another mini series back to the pod? So we're going to be starting a 3-part mini series, which is all going to be around healing the relationship with yourself, food, and your body. So each episode is going to dive deep on each of these different things to heal and to really focus on based off my personal experiences, my experiences working one-on-one as a coach and helping girls really heal the relationship with themselves, food, and their body. Because at the end of the day, these 3 pillars is what I find a lot of young girls and a lot of people in general are struggling with. Like, we are struggling to find that balance with food, and we're struggling to feel confident and comfortable in our own bodies and skin. And we're honestly, at the end of the day, struggling to have a positive relationship with ourselves. The relationship with ourselves is definitely what I see at the end of the day that most people are struggling with the most, because that's what it truly comes down to. And so I would like to think of it as this tier system. And it's like, first we see this relationship with food that we're struggling with, and then we realize it actually has more to do with how we feel about our bodies, and then how we feel about our bodies is actually related to how we feel about ourselves and how our inner relationship with ourself is. And so we're going to start this mini series, part 1, with relationship with food. We're going to start at this top of the pillar, or this top of like this little inverted pyramid that I'm envisioning right now. And then as each week goes on, we're going to go from food, body, and then to self. Because once you can really master healing that relationship with yourself, you are freaking golden. I'm telling you, life just becomes significantly easier. And so we kind of have to go through in layers, and we have to do it in the process of food to body to self. At least that's what I personally did, was I really focused on that relationship with food first, then body, and then I could go in and do the deeper inner self work. But it kind of takes time. You have to peel back the layers and really focus on each one of those things first and foremost. So I am so excited for this mini series. I hope you're excited for this mini series, because I feel like just including multiple parts, like I could talk about all of this in one episode, sure, but by giving each topic its own specific time to really allow you to like digest and sink in all the information, I think will just help you as we continue to peel back each layer, and then eventually getting to that relationship with self. So to supplement this mini series, I wanted to offer my pod fam a exclusive discount to my course, which is Unleash Your Inner Glow. That is literally all about how to heal the relationship with yourself, food, and body. So if you're wanting something to supplement this mini series, which essentially just dives deeper in everything that I'm going to be talking about in the mini series, it's going to give you the journal prompts, the affirmations, the meditations, the workbooks, the places to actually do the inner work. So I'm going to be explaining a lot of the high level concept and the tips to do so. But if you're wanting something to actually supplement to do with this mini series, which I could not recommend more, this is going to be absolutely game changer to your growth and to really creating the change, is by physically doing the change. So I can tell you how to do everything, but until you physically actually do it all, you might not see, the results to the level that you want. So if you're wanting to take the course in supplement with this mini series, I could not recommend it more. And I'm going to offer you guys an exclusive pod discount, which is going to be PodFam50. So 50% off. I've literally never given 50% off on the course. I honestly just want as many people as possible to take it so that you can experience the massive, massive amounts of growth and success previous clients and previous customers have gotten. So the link will be in the show notes, PodFam50. Be sure to check it out to supplement the miniseries. But with all that said and done, let's get into topic number 1, episode number 1, how to heal the relationship with food. So My relationship with food, as I'm sure many of you guys know, because I've done a bunch of podcast episodes talking about it, started back when I was in high school. So to briefly, overview it, and trigger warning for anyone with topics on like disordered eating, binging. Long story short, in high school, I started to get really into the world of fitness, and I started getting really, really, really obsessed with it. So I was going off the deep end. I started off innocent, and over time, I just started becoming way more obsessed with it. So I was, working out for hours a day in the gym. I was tracking my macros, tracking my calories. I was weighing all my food. I was obsessed with clean eating. Like, I wouldn't let myself eat anything that wasn't quote unquote clean. And then at the end of the day, I would binge on foods because my body was so nutrient deficient on things. Like, my body physically needed carbs. It physically needed the things to literally sustain life. Meanwhile, I was being so strict on myself and only allowing myself to have the most clean foods throughout the day, which then caused my body to revolt against me. And then over time, as that continued happening, a lot of other things in my body and my mind started spiraling. My mental health went to shit. My gut health started becoming a really big problem. I was bloated 24/7. My hormones were out of whack. And it was just really all stemming from that inner relationship that I had with food to begin with. Because by creating this really unhealthy relationship with food and having this restriction and then binging and then overeating and then undereating and then not eating what my body actually needed and then overeating these processed things that I thought were good because the fitness industry told me that it was, over time caused extreme problems for my physical and my mental health. And so I want to save each and every one of you who's struggling with your relationship with food to really get past it and to not have to make the same mistakes, or at least have to suffer as long as I did, because this lasted years. Like, it started off slowly. It was a slow, gradual build, but over time, it just became so much more over-consuming in my life, to the point where I just hit a breaking point. Like, I did not know what to do because my family started noticing it. My mom brought it up to me one day and she was really worried about me. And I had such a hard time even just figuring out my own self and my own body because I was so disconnected from it. I was following these people online that I thought were telling me the right things to do, but internally in my body was revolting against me, and it actually wasn't. And so my wish for this podcast episode and this series in general is to really, really, really help you get past it, because I know what it's like to not have that balance with food and to be at war with yourself. Ultimately, that's how it felt like. Like, I felt at war with myself. Like, my mind was constantly battling and I didn't know what to do, and I would get stressed out about going out to eat, and I would have all of these different thoughts and emotions that just was exhausting. And so this episode, we're really going to dive deep on how you don't have to struggle with that anymore. How this relationship with food obviously is something that takes time. It's not just going to happen overnight. But if you can start to listen and apply these tools and tactics now, over time, you'll see that it actually is going to become a lot easier than you think to really ultimately heal that relationship with food. So something that I really learned through that process is that healing my relationship with food actually really had a lot to do with healing the relationship that I had with myself. And I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I can now realize that I was just projecting any, insecurities or issues or beliefs that I had onto food. Like, food was the crutch and food was the physical manifestation of the relationship that I had with myself. It was just showing me and using it as like a crutch, so to speak. But it never was actually about the food, which is the funny thing. It was always about something deeper. And, we're going to get into healing the relationship with self all in its own podcast episode over the next few weeks. So I'm not going to get too deep on that. But something that I encourage each and every one of you to do and to start looking at and thinking about is to really ask yourself some deeper questions, such as, why do I feel the need to restrict myself so much? Why do I feel the need to go on these crazy, change thoughts that I need to change, and I need to look a certain way, or I need to eat a certain way, or I need to work out a certain way in order to feel good about myself. Like, start asking yourself some deeper questions. Like, why was I projecting onto the food? Why was I making food my whole personality, my health and wellness, my whole personality, driving myself crazy over going out to eat with friends? Like, start asking yourself these deeper questions around why and what is the driving force behind it. I know it's not easy to always look inside and really think about it, but just stop yourself and literally ask yourself, why am I feeling the need to do this? Why do I feel the need to drive myself crazy, to be at war with myself? And so an example that I used was like, why do I feel the need to restrict myself so much? Why do I feel the need to only eat clean? And if I don't eat clean, like, I'm some sort of failure, right? Or like, I'm not worthy of these things. And so once I started asking myself, and I can look back now and realize like, oh, because I didn't truly honor and love myself and love my body, and I didn't think I was worthy of these things, I thought I had to change in order to feel good about myself. And so the food was just a reflection of that. So start really thinking about it from this lens that maybe it's not even about the food. Maybe it has everything to do with that inner self, the inner relationship with self. And ask yourself these questions. Why do I feel the need to restrict? Why do I feel the need to only do clean eating? And then if I don't, I'm some sort of failure. It's a mental thing. There's always something deeper, and we're going to get into it in the rest of this mini series, so I'll save it for then. But I want to share some tips that I think really helped me to heal that inner relationship with food, and that really helped me kind of nourish that relationship with food again, because now I'm at a place where I'm like, I love food, all foods fit, balance. Like, I don't even think about food. That's the best part of this all, is that like, I don't feel the need to be thinking about, what am I going to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner? What if I'm going out to eat? I have to check the menu and make sure I can eat it. Or how many grams of protein does this have? Like, no. Food is, I love it. I'm a foodie. I love trying all foods, making recipes. You guys know that. But at the same time, it's not my whole world. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's kind of like a back burner thought. And so I eat to nourish myself. I eat to feel good. I love eating nutritious foods, but it's not something that takes over my life anymore. So here's some tips that, if you're struggling, I think can really help you to start implementing today. Number 1, unfollowing anyone online that is making you feel worse about yourself or is preaching things that you maybe deep down know is not healthy for you. So for example, for me, I was following a lot of fitness people at the time, a lot of Fitspo. And this was like 8 years ago now. And at the time, no one was really talking about balance and stuff. And I'm sure there's still people online that aren't talking about it. But the people that I was following and listening to and really taking in and absorbing everything they were saying, they were preaching all things, macro counting, calorie counting, clean eating, taking this supplement, doing this thing. And that really affected my psyche, because at the end of the day, our diet is more than just what we eat. Our diet is what we're consuming, who we're listening to, the people we're around, what kind of thoughts we're having, our self-talk. All of these things really also encompass our diet. And so if you are struggling with your relationship with food or yourself, ask yourself, who are you following online? What content are you taking in online? What does your TikTok For You page look like? What YouTube videos are you watching? Because I guarantee that content is affecting you even more than you know, even if it's subconsciously. So really take like a pulse check with yourself of like, okay, who am I following? What content am I taking in? And is it making me feel good? Is it driving me to become a better person, to become a best version of myself, to live a better life? Or is it actually draining me? Is it taking away my energy? Is it making me more stressed out? And that question itself should handle a lot of problems. Number 2 was stopping to track any calories, macros, throwing that food scale away, like fully just getting rid of it, because at the end of the day, that was too obsessive for me. And so if it works for you, more power to you, sis. But at the end of the day, learning how to do intuitive eating, and I have a ton of episodes on intuitive eating, was the game changer for me because I could not handle having all the restriction and the stress that came with it. I think at the end of the day, it was like food and eating wasn't fun anymore. It was just stressful. It felt like a chore. Like I had to track things. I had to do all of these things versus you can start making food and eating more fun again. And so that brings me to tip number 3 is like, have fun with cooking again. Have fun with recipes. Have fun with trying different things, trying new foods, doing different things. Focus on the fun element of it. Because when you start seeing this as such a chore and something that is like so stressful, your body is also going to hold on to that stress. So let me give you an example. It's a medical study, a study that just got published recently. And the study went like this. I'm going to try to explain this as best as possible. So the study gave 2 groups of people the same milkshake. And in one group of the people, they told them that the milkshake was high calorie and very filling. And the other group of people, they told the milkshake was low calorie and not very filling. And what ended up happening was they both drank the same milkshake, and the responses their bodies made to the milkshake were different. Even though nutritionally it was the same, their body responded differently because their mind thought that the milkshakes were different. So there was a level of ghrelin, which is something that gets released when you are hungry. And the group of the people who had the milkshakes that they thought were high calorie had higher spikes of ghrelin because they thought that it was actually more filling than it was. So when you have higher ghrelin, that means that you aren't, as hungry, versus the people who had the lower milkshake had lower amounts of ghrelin. And so it just goes to show that the way that your psychological mind and just your psyche interprets food and perceives food and really, the food that you're eating, that's going to affect how your body responds to it as well. So when you think about it this way, you're going to start to see that the way that you are treating your food, the way that you are thinking about your food, talking about your food, is going to affect the way your body responds to it. So if you're eating and you're stressing out about what you're eating and you're thinking this is so bad or this isn't good for me, or if you're just stressed about it in general, your body's going to respond differently to that. Your cortisol is going to go higher, aka our stress hormone. And when cortisol is higher, we store more fat and we don't digest things as well. So when you think about it from this way, you really want to start and think about like eating should be fun. I should enjoy it. I should show gratitude for my food. I should be celebrating it. And so doing so will then affect the way your body responds to it, because a lot of eating, a lot of physical stuff is actually psychological. So the more that you can really celebrate food, and maybe that could look like, saying a prayer before you eat, or just taking a moment to show gratitude, saying something out loud, loving, putting your hands on your chest, hugging yourself and like being like, this food is going to nourish my body from the inside out. Saying something like that can actually really affect the way that your body chooses to digest it. So have some food for thought today, no pun intended, to think about it. So tip number 4, to go off that last one, was something that actually really helped me was starting to view food differently as well. So kind of packaging it all together was that I started to see food not just as numbers, but more as nourishment and more as what nutrients can this food give to me. And this is something that's helped me eat nutrient-dense foods and eat healthy, even with my intuitive eating balanced, all foods fit journey, is really starting to think of food as nourishment. Like, okay, what nourishment am I getting from this food? What kind of, vitamins? Is there protein? Is there healthy fat, complex carbs? Like looking at food kind of as a source of nourishment and not just as numbers and like some weight loss thing. Because I think I used to view food as like, oh, how many calories? Is this weight loss friendly or is this not? Oh, no. Okay, yeah, that used to be my thought process. But now it's more like, okay, let's make a balanced meal to keep me full for a few hours, to sustain my energy all day, to really fuel my brain, be good for my gut health. Okay, so maybe we got some protein, some healthy fat. Let's get a complex carb in there, maybe some fermented veggies, some fiber to help with gut health. Like, that's the way I'm thinking about food now. It's not a weight loss thing, but rather a nourishment thing from the inside out. And lastly, tip number 5 that I think really helped my relationship with food was not being afraid to ask for help. And like I said, my family brought it up to me. My mom did. She definitely noticed something was off. And at first I really wanted to like push it away and not confront it and not admit that I was struggling with something. I like didn't think that I had a problem with anything. To be honest, I was like, no, nothing's wrong. Like, this is normal. This is what people do. Until the point where I was like, okay, yeah, maybe this is an issue. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid, to reach out to family, friend, therapist, even just DM me on Insta. I'm here for you. And just know that it's good to ask for help. It's good to get other people's advice and knowledge and support, because at the end of the day, they might be seeing something that you're not. And that's definitely how it was for me. So that's going to conclude today's first part of the mini series, How to Heal the Relationship with Food. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to take a screenshot, share it on your story, DM me, let me know that you listened. I love hearing from you guys. And don't forget, if you want to supplement this mini series, definitely take a look at the course. It's 50% off right now for the duration of this podcast mini series. Use code PODFAM50 and the link to it is in the show notes. It is all on healing the relationship with yourself, body, and food, and really how to get past it, how to do that inner work. I give you all the tools, tactics. It's super extensive. I'll let you read about it online because there's so much more I could say, but it's truly, I put all my heart, soul, knowledge, everything into that course. So I'm sending so much love. Message me if you have any questions, and stay tuned for the next 2 parts of the mini series. Mwah.